Hi guys, it's the 36th episode of Promptsquad, so that's about 3 years, isn't it? It's got to be about 3 years. It's crazy to think about, but I'm so glad that we've reached this milestone. To think of how much wonderful art that you've all created in that amount of time, and just how much development and growth that I know I've seen watching all of you every single month. So yeah, I'm really happy that you've all taken this time over the last 3 years to work towards this goal, and so we can all work towards it together. I really hope you know how much, I just value you guys every single month. I'm so amazed by what you do. So, anyway, I'm clearly all soppy just thinking about it, but yeah, let's get started. The prompt for this month was nail and or body art, suggested by Farrfotos. And I'll be honest, I was really intrigued what everyone was going to do for this one, because I think most of us are more on that, drawing, painting side of art, and we don't really often venture necessarily into arts and crafts. So I thought this one would be very interesting to review and just to see what everyone was going to do for it. I kind of had an idea for what I wanted to do quite quickly, but I wasn't really sure how I wanted to achieve it. Because, I really love tattoo artists. I follow quite a lot of them on Instagram, especially considering that I don't have any myself. But my sister has a fair amount of tattoos now, and my mum has often talked about wanting this specific tattoo that over the years we've talked about, we've designed and worked on together. And because that design and working on it with my mum means a lot to me, I knew that I wanted that to be the focus of my take on this month's prompt. Now, I've already done a design for a temporary tattoo in the past for her, and I've had it made and everything, so I was thinking about that design and maybe reimagining it somehow. And I noticed the other day that I had this canvas in my art cupboard just gathering dust. So I thought, let's do some actual painting on this channel for a bit of fun, get the acrylic and gouache paints out, and have a bit of fun for this prompt. Now, the canvas is a bit buckled, and I didn't realise how buckled it would be, especially by the end, because I left the room for like 5 minutes while I was painting, and Rory decided to just sleep on it like a hammock, so completely thoroughly saggy in the middle now. But I looked online, I saw some tips on how to tighten the canvas, which I do try out at the end, and I'll tell you how that tip worked out. Spoiler, but it went really well. But yeah, I think I should probably explain this idea a little bit more first though. The main concept is around flowers. Obviously I'm Jasmine, Jasmine flowers and that, and my sister's name includes Rose. Now there's a lot of, deeper stories associated with the design and all that, which I'm not going to go into, but these are the two main image features that I knew were important for me to represent when I was doing this painting. I was also thinking a lot about specific colours. My mum's favourite colour is red, but she isn't a big pink fan. The colour, not the artist. But yeah, anyway, creating the highlights on this rose was a bit of a nightmare because clearly I wanted the highlights, but I couldn't make them pink. So I ended up using a blend of peach and yellow, and then I could also use those colours to bring them out again in the jasmine flowers, as that would hopefully then reduce the pink hues and up the reds. But yeah, as I was painting, I also had a bit of a crisis with the background, because red, yellow and some blues in the darker tones was really leading this to being a very, primary colour palette, which I won't lie, I'm not very confident in, and I didn't want this to feel childish. You know, I was going for something a bit more classy, a bit pretty, so choosing a colour that wasn't going to take away from the main focus of the two flowers, but also matched and complemented them, it did take me quite a while to decide. I ended up sketching out a colour wheel in my diary and then thinking about good pairings, and over time I decided that a turquoise blue tone kind of colour would be best. Now my reasoning for this is that I believe the only two colours really that was going to work with this design that I'd done would have been maybe like an orangey yellow or a turquoise blue, as both of them would be kind of off tones of the other primary colours that were in the painting, and that would then mean that they would kind of contrast the red rose well enough to make the rose pop, but also complement the overall tones as a full image. It's kind of hard to explain this type of stuff, but I guess maybe it'll be easy to explain why I didn't make certain other choices. So I didn't go with that orange-yellow tone because of the white jasmine flowers in the design. I knew that those white colour tones could easily disappear into the yellow, and say I try and counteract that and I up the saturation or I make the yellow darker to make those white flowers stand out. Well, now I'm pulling all the yellow tones out of the red rose, and they're going to start getting lost in the background. So I decided to take out the blues of the darker shadows that I'd used in that rose design, and instead kind of use that to create a far more contrasted design, like overall. You'll have to let me know what colours you would have gone with for this. I hope I kind of explained my thinking well enough there, but you know, I do love colour theory and I'm always trying to find the right words to describe my thinking, but it's a really hard thing to explain when you get down to it. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. While I was painting the background, I thought it would be fun to add a bit of light texture because the flowers themselves are very tonal, very flat, and not very textured on this canvas, so I thought it'd be a bit more interesting to look at if there was, you know, a bit more textured background rather than it just being a flat colour background. I added some white gouache to the front of my brush, so on like a flat brush. One side of the brush I added white, and on the other side I added these darker blue tone of gouache, and I swept it as a dry brush over that base of blue that I'd done while it was still wet. And it gives it this kind of rough plaster-like effect. I really like doing this technique when painting. If I had my own house, I would just be painting my walls like this. I want them to look like this, you know? It reminds me of kind of a rustic European villa, maybe like Italy or France. I think it's so pretty and so nice to add a bit of texture like this. And yeah, once I had that base background finished, I could then kind of go backwards a little bit and focus on the last, you know, nitty-gritty details of those flowers. I repainted the stems in this darker blue tone, and I kind of painted details quite loosely with a larger brush than I usually would. I used to be this, you know, uber perfectionist when it came to still life painting and drawing. I wanted everything to be photo perfect. But nowadays I'm a much bigger fan of focusing on lights and tones. I like when a mixture of shapes and brush strokes are just enough to let you know what something is and what it looks like. Kind of letting your mind fill in the blanks. I think in a lot of ways that's harder to achieve and it's quite a different way of thinking, but I really prefer the end result. And finally, when the painting was done, I tried the canvas tightening technique. It's a bit scary as you just pour and brush water onto the back of the canvas and let it dry. And especially because I'd used gouache in this painting, I was really worried about it reactivating, which to be honest it did happen a little bit, but I think I was roughly able to tidy up well what happened there. But yeah, it really worked. I was really shocked. I'd probably do it before painting a canvas next time, but you know, I didn't realise how saggy it was until I started adding water. So yeah, I definitely recommend it if you need to re-stretch a canvas that you have before painting it. I think the back of my canvas fabric was a little bit gessoed as well, as the water kind of sits on top at first, as you can see. But I worked it into the fabric with a brush and immediately the fabric tightened. It was really, really interesting. I mean, definitely one of the most effective art tricks that I've seen and used in a while. And yeah, this is the end product, the Rose and Jasmine painting. I was thinking of giving this to my mum as part of a wider Mother's Day gift. I know you're watching, Mum, so you're going to have to let me know if you actually want this, or should I just go throw it back in the art cupboard? And that's my piece for this month's prompt. I'm going to leave it here, let a bit of music play just so you can see how it all turned out, and then we'll come back and see what all the rest of Prompt Squad did for nail and body art this month. Zoe's piece for this prompt was, it's just too cool. I absolutely love this idea and how she's designed her piece overall. It's just really brilliant. Like, the tattoo needle has her kind of classic clean pen style that she uses, very graphical and strong. And then you have this kind of soft watercolour blended background that feels very gentle, and it's just such a good juxtaposition between the two. I think Zoe's very good at making very powerful images. I think that's something that I just really admire in her style. Her work is really sharp and powerful, and it always catches my eye whenever I'm scrolling on Instagram. I'm like, well, there's Zoe's, you know, on my annual visit, because I never am there. But yeah, it looks beautiful. Dave did this really beautiful digital illustration too for this month's prompt, and I just got start looking at it. The colours are gorgeous. I love this colour palette that he's used so much, like how he's played with skin tone to make it even more like sharp and contrasted. I think that's really beautiful. And yeah, it just makes me want to paint seeing it. I think Dave's taken my simple shapes comment from last episode a little bit like a challenge with this design. It's funny because you see this kind of mix of body art and tattoo art when you go through these entries here. And it's very funny because I really did not think about like face paint or body art at all. And yet so many of you have done such great twists with it. I think I just thought tattoos and gave up. I don't know why. So yeah, I'm really interested in showing off everyone's work, and definitely Dave's is such an inspiring piece to start off with. Sean's idea for this month is insane. I literally cannot get over what he did. When I saw the photographs at first, I thought, he must have done this digitally. But then you see his video and the amount of work and different mediums that Sean worked with to create this overall Van Gogh-inspired piece. It's astounding, to be honest. I mean, he used a mix of face paint and then acrylics on the clothing, and he really illustrated these impressionistic brushstrokes perfectly. I mean, he literally turned himself into a work of art. It's just, wow. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but it kind of reminds me of this movie called Loving Vincent, where each frame is painted kind of in Van Gogh style. Definitely worth having a look if you think this Sean art is very beautiful, because it really reminds me of that. Nadia took inspiration from an outfit that she wore on a night out a few years back and accessorised it with this Chinese dragon tattoo down the leg. It kind of took me a moment to realise that her design wasn't a draping dress with that lovely curve that she did, but it was a leg in forced perspective. I couldn't believe it. I'm not used to that perspective, so I think I just didn't imagine it that way. But I think it works perfectly for this prompt, and it was a way to feature the art as like the main important focal point of the drawing. I think it's really clever. I mean, I love the amount of thought that Nadia always puts into her compositions. She isn't afraid of playing with perspective, which I really admire because I am absolutely terrified of it. Emily went full method and used uni fine liners to create her own black and white tattoo design on herself. Now, she's also part of the secret rose tattoo club of Promptsquad that I'm naming now, because she designed a rose too for her prompt. I was excited to see what Emily would do for this prompt because I really love her graphical black and white art style that she does. She really has that style down well, so it really made me, want to see her style in maybe a tattoo, like a tattoo transfer. Maybe a bit of peer pressure there, Emily. Keep putting the peer pressure on, make some tattoo transfers. Anyway, Troy used this reference image of a tattooed woman and a face-painted woman, as the inspiration for his own pencil piece, and I'm just floored by it. I love the smooth blends that Troy achieves, especially in the vibrant greens, reds, the skin tones. I think skin tones especially are hard enough to paint, let alone to do them in pencil. And it's just very inspiring to look at how Troy has achieved such natural shadows and highlights. He's very good at picking the correct colours for skin, and I am terrible at that. So I really love to look at how Troy does it. Plus, I really like how Troy does these blends. You'll have to let us know, Troy, if you use pastels, because you always get such a lovely smoothness that reminds me of pastels. It's really beautiful. I'm just going to start peer pressuring you, Troy, into, making some videos. I peer pressure Emily to make tattoos. I peer pressure Troy to make videos. Okay, let's go on to Farrfotos. Now, Farrfotos created two pieces for this mum's prompt that have this kind of flower motif that connects both of them together. I love the bright colours of her digital piece and how Farrfotos used this tattoo-like embroidery detail on the clothing. Then you have this classical take on body art with the pencil drawing. It's really lovely to see the gentle figure drawing that she could do and the curves of that matching the flower design of the tattoo she's designed. They both complement each other so beautifully. I think they just have a lovely flow between them. I really like that in her art. Finally, Sammy created this beautiful illustration of her OC Hillen Mer. I don't know if I pronounced that right, I think I did it wrong. Anyway, hopefully I didn't mispronounce it completely. But she says that it means lover of the ocean in Spanish, which is such a perfect name for this character. The colours are always so vibrant and gorgeous in Sammy's art. Just her art makes me feel more alive when I see it. I think that's such a special thing to have in your art, and it really does every time, Sammy. I love it. And Sammy also hinted that Hillen is part of a wider manga story that she's written. And my god, get it published, Sammy. I want to read it. I want to see the full story. I don't know why I keep making demands of everyone. I'm sorry, guys. I'm clearly just a bit pushy today. I get greedy. I want more art once I see it. I can't help myself. And that's everyone's art for this month's prompt. Thank you all so much for creating your wonderful pieces for this prompt. I was really intrigued by what this prompt was going to look like when all the art came together in the end. And I think it's even more experimental and exciting than I thought it would be. I've really got high expectations of you guys after the last 3 years, and you never disappoint. So let's get on to choosing next month's prompt from the spinner wheel. Now remember, you can suggest your own prompt in the comments below and I'll add it to next month's spin. And the next prompt is... okay, alright, I'm very excited for this one. It's Art of Quentin Blake, suggested by Dave. Right, this is kind of a blast from the past if you're one of the OGs. Basically, back when this challenge, began on here, and it was kind of called drawing requests back then, I used to do the prompts that we had in specific art styles, and this one I think is kind of like that. I'll put some of Quentin Blake's art up on screen so you can see his style. I'm sure most of you are going to know him, but he's the illustrator for all the Roald Dahl books here in the UK, and I imagine other countries used him, but I'm not sure. He has this loose, sketchy style to his art. He uses pen and watercolour, and I'm sure if you grew up with the Roald Dahl books, you've got a special place in your heart for his art. So for this prompt, I want you to create a piece of art inspired by Quentin Blake. Maybe a reimagining of his illustrations in your style. Maybe you'll go and make your own Roald Dahl illustration. Or maybe you use his techniques to make your own illustration. Or, most likely, let's be honest, you'll have a much more creative interpretation than this and make something very cool. Whatever that idea is, just make sure to have it complete and ready for the deadline, which is going to be the 1st of April, April Fool's Day. It's no joke. Anyway, just upload your art or email it to me. My email is on my About page here on YouTube. And if you add the hashtag Promptsquad when you upload it, I and anyone searching can then go find it, and I'll make sure to add your art and details into next month's video. I really hope you're excited as I am for this next prompt. I know it's going to be quite different, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun to explore another artist's style in this way, and kind of see how you all interpret it and see what you all learn from it. Thank you all again for taking part and watching the Prompt Squad. If you'd like to join in, please give it a go. I know that I love, and the rest of the Prompt Squad loves to see new artists and to support them. So yeah, come join us, There's lots of people here to chat to, and yeah, it's a really nice way to make sure you do at least one piece of art every month. I know that's how I often feel with it. I hope you've all had a great month, and I hope to talk to you all again soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye!